What's up, everybody? Welcome to the third episode of the Interesting Enough podcast, the show where two guys get together once a week to talk about all sorts of topics ranging from video games to pop culture. Why? Because we are just interesting enough to do so. I am one of your hosts, Malik Rahili, and I am joined by the man, the myth, and of course, as you know him, the legend, Mr. Corey Spires.
How's it going, everybody?
Corey,
Sir.
how are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm finally off work for the night, sitting here relaxing, about to talk about games with my bro. So it's a good night.
You've been working about a week straight at this point, right?
Today was my 7th straight day, 7 days, 56 hours, because the schedule's changed, and today was the last day of my stretch of hell. So yes.
That sounds awful.
It was.
Have you played any video games in this time?
A little bit.
What have you been playing?
Been playing some Rare Replay. And actually, that's pretty much it. Rare Replay, and I also downloaded Limbo on the PlayStation Network because it is free for PlayStation Plus subscribers. And I will say I'm really enjoying playing Limbo. I am probably a little less than halfway through it, and I'm having a great time with it. I think it's a fantastic, really atmospheric game that I'm really enjoying getting into. And with Rare Replay, I actually finished Banjo-Kazooie last night, and I am diving into Conker's Bad Fur Day as we speak. So,
awesome.
Yes, sir. What are you working on at the moment?
I think I mentioned this last week. I'm going on this gaming dry spell where I haven't really been playing anything. I haven't been getting anything, but that finally ended a couple days ago. I picked up, per your recommendation and per the internet's recommendation, Rare Replay as well. And I'm not a Rare guy. I didn't play any of the Rare games except Viva Pinata. And even then, I only put maybe like 4 or 5 hours into it. And I never played any of the classic Rare games, and that was a big misstep on my part growing up. And so I picked it up, and I'm hopped on Banjo-Kazooie right now, and I'm actually really enjoying my time with it. And soon I hope to start Conker's Bad Fur Day and Perfect Dark and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm enjoying that right now. And I don't know how much longer that's going to hold my attention for. We'll see. That might change when Phantom Pain comes out, because I'm probably going to get that just because it's something.
Yeah,
it's something
gonna be
to
good.
get.
It's going to be good.
Yeah. So, as you all have probably figured out by now, we start each show by bringing topics. Don't know how many topics we bring each week, just topics to get a good conversation going. And so today we've come with a couple of topics prepared. And Corey, why don't you kick us off with your first topic?
Sure. So I was watching some gameplay trailers at work today because things got pretty slow near the end of the day. And oh goodness, hopefully you can cut that out. And I was watching a lot of footage on Deus Ex, and that game looks really cool. Deus Ex, and I was also seeing some stuff on Uncharted. I watched some things on the new Tomb Raider, and I even went back and rewatched a lot of the Fallout 4 trailer, and it got me thinking about this. And it's games like Deus Ex and Fallout 4 that seem to really pride themselves on taking this whole player choice thing into account. And we've heard this before. We've heard games that advertise like, oh, you choose the way you play and everything. But how many games have actually done that? I mean, we hear that all the time, and like, sure, there's games like Fallout 3 where you had some choice, and The Witcher you had some choice, but you know, these games, like when I watch Deus Ex, it seems like you really shape your own experience. And with Fallout 4, the way it's going, it seems like it's really going to be one of those games where 50 different people could get 50 different experiences, based on the way that they play it. And that has me really intrigued, and it has me thinking about player choice and how important that is. So my question for you is there ever a time when you feel like video games could give you too much choice? Do you like to have a little bit of a guidance, or do you like games where it's just completely your sandbox? Where do you stand on the whole player choice discussion?
Well, it's interesting. I sort of touched on this last week when we were talking about RPGs, but I can go, obviously, for hours on this topic. My thing with player choice, first off, I hate when games give you the guise of player choice, where it's like, oh, you can do whatever you want and you can get tons of different experiences. And while Mass Effect is a fantastic game and I love it, it doesn't. You can make your choices and stuff like that, but in certain situations, like you can choose 2 different dialogue options that ultimately end in the same result. It's just different dialogue. It's not really shaping the story in a certain way, just how people perceive you in the game. Like, if people perceive you as an asshole in the game, you know, that's one thing, and then they can perceive you as, oh, this guy is a saint in another. But at the end of the day, the result is the same thing. You're still going to end up doing the same mission. You're going to end up doing the same quest. You're going to end up getting the same end result, except toward the end of the game, when the story, obviously, you'll get two different endings. And that, I don't think, is the entire... I don't think it's the entire truth when they say you get free reign player choice.
Sure.
You just get really the choice of what you say to people and how people perceive you. Which, I mean, I guess to an extent...
Sure. And when that was first around, though, that was like, people were freaking out, like Knights of the Old Republic.
Yeah.
When people were like, you can literally choose what dialogue option. Like, that was new. Now, like, that's just kind of standard. Like, you should be able to choose dialogue options. And now I think companies are starting to realize, like, how can we instill even more choice? And, like, in the Fallout 4 discussion, what I've heard is you can, like, walk away from conversations, and you can, you know, obviously you can kill NPCs that take away complete quest lines. And so, like, I think now the boundaries are being pushed. But, yeah, when that the options came out, people were like, wow, this is awesome. And now it's sort of just like, okay, we expect that.
Yeah, and obviously my definition of player choice has changed over the years. When I was younger and I first popped in Knights of the Old Republic, it was, wow, I can literally do anything I want in this game, when really all it was just dialogue options. But, you know, as games have gotten bigger and bolder, this new idea of you can literally shape the story to your liking is the new sort of thing happening with these big action adventure games / role-playing games. And a big one that comes to mind is, like I said last week, The Witcher. You're not going to have the same story as someone else. Obviously, the same arc is there. You're still going to have, you go find Ciri. But the way you get there could be completely different from someone else. Like, you cannot talk to this character. You cannot talk to this quest, or you not do this quest line. You can go find something that someone else can't. You can do a bunch of different things and end up having a completely different story, as opposed to you talk to the same people, and every time you play the game, it's just you can pick different options.
And that shit really excites me, and thinking, like, will there be a future where you play a game and, like, I talk to you about it, and I'm like, oh, wasn't that crazy when this happened? You're like, oh, I didn't see that, but, you know, when that giant, you know, Minotaur came out through the wall and, you know, killed my entire party, that was fucking sick, too. And I'll be like, oh, I never saw that. And to, like, get the full story, you'd have to play the game, like, 50 times. Like, that shit excites the hell out of me, to think about a time when there'd be a game that deep and with that much choice. You know what I mean?
I remember when, it's the quest in The Witcher. This is spoilers if you haven't played The Witcher, but I believe it's after you kill, you have the chance to kill or save the Wunderkin. No, the Wunderkin is the weird demonic baby thing, right? That's a Lubberkin.
Lubberkin, there it is.
Yeah, I don't know what a Wunderkin is.
I think that's like a some sort of like action figure, isn't it, or like a kid's toy?
It's probably some like stuffed animal, like a Care Bear or something. I'm equating it to some demonic demon baby that rose from the dead to kill pregnant women. But anyway, when you have the chance to save like the Lubberkin or kill it, afterward, when you do that quest and you find out like the wife has died and you have to get the daughter back, and you go. You have the option to go with I forget his name. He was like the
Baron.
Yeah, the Baron. That's it. Where you have to go. You can have the option to go with him to the swamp and go fight. You know, the hags, the 3 hags.
Right.
And I remember telling you, I was like, oh, remember the part where you went to the swamp and had to fight the giant fiend with all the guys, and you were just like, no, I never did that part.
Yeah.
And that part was really cool because our stories aren't the same. There's literally 1,000 things that can be different with each of our playthroughs. As like I said earlier, as compared to Mass Effect, where it's like, oh, did you save Garrus, or did you have sex with Garrus, or did you?
Which I always did, of course.
That's disgusting. Or did you kill Ashley or Caden? Right? His name is Caden, right? Caden
yeah, and you should always kill Caden.
Yeah, Caden sucks.
That was his name, wasn't it? Yeah.
I think so. That sounds right. I'll just be completely wrong. But it gives more control over the story and the experience you get. You get as much as the story out as you put in. If you put in the 250 hours, you can get the entire story, or if you put in 25, you can just get the main story. And I think games are starting to do that more. And to answer your question, finally, I like when games give me that option. I love the fact that The Witcher is like, hey, here's this giant world, go. Here's what you need to do. You figure out how to get there. And same thing with Fallout 4. That really excites me. That makes me so stoked for Fallout 4 and for future RPGs and stuff like that. My problem with them, and like I said last episode, when I'm given too much choice, I start to get pushed away. When I have the ability to shape every single detail about my character's face and have 100 different decisions about my class and my character and literally a million different pathways to go down, it starts to push me away, because it's like I don't have time to sink all these hours into it. And if I were to play The Witcher during the school year, it would have taken me months to beat that game, because I would have only been able to chip away like an hour at a time at it. And so when big games like that are presented to me, it's just really tough to sit down and play it. And sure. So yeah, I like it, but sometimes when it's given to me, when too much is given to me, I don't know, it starts to push me away. I still get them. I still obviously buy Fallout 4, but it'll just take me a long time to play it.
I think it's exciting to me too. Sure, RPGs are the obvious ones that you think of player choice in, but it even excites me when you think about how it could be used in action games. Because like when I was watching Tomb Raider and especially the Uncharted gameplay, obviously those E3 stage demos aren't going to be exactly how the games play out, but it looks to me like there's a lot of different ways that like these Michael Bay-esque action sequences could take place in games like Uncharted in the future. Like sure, you have to get from point A to point B as Nathan Drake, but are you going to do it by crashing through the wall in the Jeep that you're driving, or are you going to get out and punch the dude with the AK-47 in the face and take his gun and then flank the other enemies? So, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's like a sandbox world that these action games could explore, and it excites me because, I mean, like, we've seen it a little bit like with The Last of Us, right? Like, you have a area with 6 human guards and then some infected, whatever they were called in The Last of Us lore. And it's like, how did you go about it? Oh, I snuck up behind the first guy, hit him with a brick, and then I just snuck around everybody else. Oh, I took them all out. You know what I mean? So, like, there's different ways these action sequences can play out, and the player choice element of that really excites me.
And I agree. I think it's tough to present someone with an RPG and literally give them free reign over everything, just because that would be a massive, ginormous game to literally like do whatever you want without something being there to lead you along.
Sure, there has to be some amount of restriction.
Yeah, and I understand that. Like with The Witcher, you are steered along the main quest line. It's really all the side quest stuff when everything gets crazy, and that's typically how most RPGs are nowadays. The main quest really pushes you along. And the side quest stuff is really the free reign stuff where you get most of the experience out of it. But I think action games are starting to really see the usefulness out of player choice and stuff like that. And when you start talking about that, the game that immediately popped in my mind was Batman, Arkham Knight, and Arkham City, and Arkham Asylum. Those
good
games,
examples of that as well.
Yeah, those games literally let you take on any situation however you want. If you want to throw down a smoke bomb and then take down 5 of the guys and then just beat up the other 3, you can. You can hack the turret to shoot one of the guys, attract one, blow him up with like the explosive gel. You can do that too. There's literally different ways you can attack a scenario. And I think those games are great, and I love that kind of freedom to take on any challenge how I see fit. And another game that popped into my head was the new Ghost Recon game. I don't know if you saw this at E3.
A little bit. I've seen a little bit on it.
The Ghost Recon game is the epitome of player choice in action games, where you have an objective, take down this drug lord, and you can come in from the air, parachute in the dead of night, stealth take out everyone. You can just tactically go in with your friends and tactically take out, the snipers, and then move in on the guardsmen, and fight your way into the compound. Or you can just go balls to the wall and fly in there with a jeep, slam into a door and start mowing down foes with a turret, and I think that is awesome. I think that is a great way to introduce the player choice option into the action adventure first person shooter genres.
Yeah, and apparently the new Hitman game is going to be pretty similar in that regard. Sort of like, choose your own way that you go about it. It seems to me like a ton of the games at E3 this year are all about that sort of like free reign player choice thing, even if they're not in the RPG genre. And it makes you wonder, like, is this like a changing of the guard? Is it going to be like, oh, there's not really any player choice in the game? That's so 2013. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like there's a real paradigm shift happening right now where it's like player choice is the trendy thing to introduce, not only in like RPGs, but also the way you approach action scenarios and stuff. And it's interesting to me how that's changed.
Yeah, I agree. You're even seeing them in sports games now, where player choice is starting to take hold in the stories of. And it's weird to say sports games have stories, even that, but they have player choice in them now. You can choose what you want to say to the GM of your team, and that kind of stuff.
Do you want to like tell him you need a new contract, or tell him to go fuck himself, and then like
or say you want to get traded to the Utah Jazz, or
Granted, the choices in sports games are typically pretty static. It's like, say you want to get traded, usually it's either yes or no, you're too shitty. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but they try. Yeah. So I see what you're saying.
Yeah. But you can just see how the player choice option has infiltrated a vast amount of games now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you. I think the player choice option is going to be the next, RPG element part of games, where every single game now has RPG elements to them.
Yeah. Skill trees or experience points in some way or another.
Yeah. And even Call of Duty with the player choice, there was player choice in Call of Duty. I remember you could in Black Ops 2, you could pick different, I guess I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was like dialogue options or different like ways to end the story. But there was player choice there, so I think you will start seeing it a lot more, and I'm a fan of it. Unless there's too much thrown at me, then I start getting a little turned away. But
fair enough.
I like it.
Fair.
Okay. My topic for today, Mr. Spires, if you're ready for it, is
ready.
Digital downloads.
Are
they the way of the future? Because if I remember correctly, about 10 years ago, people everywhere said that by now, physical media in the video game industry would be completely gone and it would all be digital. But here we are. Everything is still physical medium is still here, and we don't see it going away anytime soon. No companies have really come out and said, hey, we're going to stop with our physical copies and we're going digital only. But you have started to see a lot more indie devs come out of the woodworks with digital only titles. So my question to you is, how do you feel about digital only games? Do you think they're the way of the future? Do you think physical mediums just have much of a right to stay as digital? What are your thoughts?
I'm okay with digital only games. I think I'm like you in the regard that I think we both enjoy that feeling of going to the store and getting a game, and that being an experience in its own. You know what I mean? And like taking that home. Oh my god, what a voice crack!
Taking it home.
Let's cut that out. My voice is fucking up. Okay. Yeah, I'm a fan of digital only games. I'm fine with that, but like I think like you and me are the same in the regard that we view going to the game store and getting a game as an experience in itself, right? So like going out and even trading in games and getting that new game, getting it back and bringing it, getting that wrap off, and then putting the disc in, and just the whole
This sounds
sensory
like
experience.
a hot night with a date or something.
It does, it does. But the whole
Taking it back home,
experience of
taking
just
the wrapper off,
romancing
and
your game disc. I mean, like it's an experience in itself. However, and I do get the convenience and everything of a digital only game, and for a lot of these indie developers, obviously it saves them a shit ton of money because they don't have to worry about distribution and all that. And there's a lot of great digital only games that I played and really enjoyed, and had the convenience of just picking them up, online right there. To think of a couple, like Hotline Miami, Limbo. Like these are games that I went on the digital store, picked up right then and there, and had them within an hour. You know what I mean? And so like, I think in terms of just the sheer convenience factor, it's cool, especially when it comes to like the release date of a game and like pre-ordering it, getting it to play it like or right when it comes out, and not having to like leave your house. I think that's pretty cool. And like, will there ever be a time when there's like a games on demand thing on your TV or something like that? Maybe. And I think that that's pretty cool to think about. In the meantime, I like my physical copies. But but I do understand the perks of a digital only game. Like you're getting it right then and there. Depending on your internet speed, it's usually pretty quick. My thing is there's
especially
not
since
usually.
you can, especially since you can now like pre-order games ahead of time on the stores and basically
Yeah.
download the entire game, and then at midnight you get the activation code sent to your system to basically unlock the game.
Yeah, and I think that's cool. And yeah, I don't know. I think that's definitely that's a real futuristic way. Like 6 years ago, you wouldn't have thought about buying the new Batman online when it came out because at that time I recall digital games being pretty cumbersome still. On the 360, it was like they
Hmm.
were huge downloads and like it just wasn't a very popular way. But it's changing, and the digital marketplaces are becoming much more streamlined, and like their advertising is a lot better. Like I know when I go on there and it's like the spotlight items are usually really enticing, and they let you view trailers and stuff. So it's a lot. Seems like they've done a lot more to kind of push the digital content, and I think it's cool to think about where it could go in the future. And I'm a fan of it. Like right now, the only reason I didn't buy Rare Replay, for example, digital, was because I went to the store and pre-ordered it. But like in the future, could there come a time where I'm just like pre-ordering everything for my console? I mean, I wouldn't rule it out. So I think that there's a part of me that wants to believe that digital or physical copies will always have a place here, and I think that their time of expiration isn't very soon, but it could be in the future. But I'm ready for that. I'm ready for that because I think you're seeing that with even now with like movies. It's like sure most stuff is streaming or it's on Netflix, stuff like that, right? But you're still seeing DVDs being sold and Blu-rays are being sold. But obviously there's not a big of a market for DVDs as there is for internet streaming services. I think games are going to be the same way eventually. Where there'll be these options to play digital games and you can get like a digital subscription which will like give you some sort of discount or something for being like a loyal member, and I think that's cool, and that sort of excites me for the future of digital games. And like you said, it's cool to be able to like get a game right at midnight. You don't have to go to a midnight release and actually drive. You just get it on your TV. And I
Standing
think
alone.
and I think as these we've seen these marketplaces come a long way in just the time since the 360, and I think they'll continue to evolve and continue to make things more user friendly in response to how things are now. So I think there will be a time when digital downloads are even a lot more prevalent than they are now, and that doesn't scare me. I don't fear that change. It kind of excites me to see where that could take us and what it could mean for our playing habits.
Okay. So with digital downloads, I'm finicky with it. Like you said, I love going to the store and just looking through games, picking up box art, and just seeing like all the games in front of me, open them up, look at the art book or the manual or whatever's in there, just to understand what the game is about. Um, and then getting a new game, bringing it home, unwrapping it, tearing off the cellophane, smelling that new game smell,
Oh yeah,
and
it's very distinctive.
and I love doing that so much. However, I'm starting to change, and I I want the digital only trend to take over the video game market. um, Mainly because everything else in my life has pretty much gone digital. I don't usually buy CDs anymore. I do every now and then, but it's not something that I want to do anymore. Like when a CD comes out, I don't want to go instantly go and buy it at Target, and pick up a physical copy with it, unless it's a band I really care about,
Sure,
or an artist
yeah,
I really care about. Most of the time, 99.9% of the time, music comes directly on my phone. We were just talking about this before the podcast. I have Apple Music now, and I literally get every single song that comes out on iTunes for free on my phone, and that is awesome. And I don't ever have to worry about physical copies. I don't have to worry about swapping out CDs. I can just listen to my music whenever I want, wherever I want. Movies, I used to be a big physical movie guy. And it wasn't until a couple months ago, honestly, where I really started to change my tune about that. And I'm saying this after, buying the Batman Dark Knight Rises and the Dark Knight on Blu-ray
good
2 weeks ago. But those were rare cases. They were a really good deal, and I love the Batman movies. Batman's my favorite superhero. And I didn't have them, and I had them on regular DVD, and the Dark Knight I had was on full screen, and it wasn't widescreen. Oh. And so it was like at that 4:3 aspect ratio.
You gotta love it.
And it was really gross, and I didn't want to own that anymore. So I went and got them on Blu-ray because they're on good deal. Anyway, I digress. But I've really started changing my tune about that now. I don't want to buy movies anymore physically, because they take up so much space, and you spend $20 on a brand new movie, and you watch it once, and then it's done.
Sure.
And honestly, I don't even really want to buy digital movies anymore. Because, like I said, you spend $20, you watch it once, and then you're done. And really with movies, I just really want to watch them one time, pay $4 on iTunes, I think it's, to stream a movie, and then be done, and then move on with my life. However, there is an exception with movies, and movies 1080p when you stream it, but it's not Blu-ray. There's something special about Blu-ray that is really good. So I'm not totally off the digital movie bandwagon, but if it's a movie like, I don't know, like if it's just some one, like Ant-Man that just came out, when that comes out, I'm not gonna buy it, and I probably wouldn't buy it on Blu-ray. I will probably just watch it or like rent it off of the thousands of video rental services available to people now. Yeah, for those of you that don't know, the Crocbox is like the off-brand Redbox that was available to the students of App State. And
there must be other Crocboxes in the world, because I don't know, I can't imagine there's just like that one,
I think it started in North Carolina. I think it said on the side it started in Cullowhee, North Carolina.
Oh, interesting.
So I don't know if it's anywhere else. I mean, it had all the latest movies. Don't get me wrong; it had all the latest movies.
That Battlefield 2 on the PS3.
Yeah, and it also had a section for games, and it had Battlefield 3 for the PS.
3.
Yeah, it was Battlefield 3 for the PS3, and that was the only game it ever had. It never had a single other game. But anyway, so in terms of digital video games, I love them. I love the fact that I can just buy a game and it just be right there waiting for me. Depending on your internet speed, 30 minutes to 2 hours later. And I miss obviously the feeling of going to a store and opening a game, but at this, there's just been so many times when it's just been such a hassle to go to the store and go and buy a game and then get home, and then I'm pretty OCD about my games, so I got to make sure the case is looking good, and I have to make sure that the disc is actually in the slot in the case and not moving around. So it's all a hassle. So digital games is just easier in my life. However, The reason why I haven't switched, and I'm sure Corey can vouch for this, and he probably agrees too. The reason why I have not switched to digital only games is because I am broke.
Yeah.
And I don't have enough disposable income to keep up with my game buying habits. And until I do, I probably won't switch to digital only video games, because when I buy a $60 game and I play it and I'm done with it, I can take it back to the store and at the most, if it's a brand new game, get $40 back for it from trading it in.
Yeah.
So that's the big draw for me in physical games, is people like GameStop and Best Buy. The fact that they will buy back my games and give me money that I can go and put toward another game is the reason why I play so many video games. If I didn't have those options, I wouldn't play any video games because I'd be too broke to.
Or, you'd still be playing The Witcher because you can't afford anything else. So
Yeah, I would buy one game maybe a month.
Yeah. One of the things that excites me with digital only is I'm a huge fan of like deluxe editions and stuff where you get all the DLC bundled in, because like I love DLC and like add-on packs and stuff. I'm just like even if I don't play it, just knowing it's there. And so like with digital only, it's like it makes you wonder, since like obviously all the DLC is digital anyway, it makes you wonder, will there be like more bundles that we're seeing where it's like, if you buy the digital version, you get like even a discounted season pass or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, or like you buy now and you get all the DLC that's been released because it's been out for like a year, and like that excites me because I love that feeling of when you download a game and it's like you're also downloading 5 pieces of DLC. Like even if I don't get to it, I know it's there and I know I have it. It's like, okay, cool,
Yeah, and honestly, one way I see this whole digital only trend going is to take a look at the PC game market. There are hardly any more physical PC copies of games. When you go to any game store, if you go to Best Buy, if you go to GameStop, and you go to the PC section, half the time the games are cards that you buy that give you a download code, and the other half the time the PC games are the newest games, and that's it. And anything older than the last 3, 4, 5 months, you're not going to find. And unless it's like the one-off Sims expansion that you still have. Like I remember at GameStop when I used to work there, we used to have just Sims copies and stuff like that. It was like Sims, StarCraft, Battlefield, and World of Warcraft. Those were the only PC games we ever had.
Mall Tycoon. Diablo
Mall Tycoon. Yeah, and Diablo 2, the Battle Chest edition. But I think we can someday see the console game market turning into the PC game market, where we have things like Steam on PC, where they offer ridiculous deals on games. And that's how, honestly, companies could go digital. If a company were to go to, like Activision, were to go to Microsoft and Sony and say, hey, look, we're done with physical media. All of our back catalogs of games are going to get discounted X percentage for however long they've been out.
Yeah.
And all of our future games, when it comes out, it's going to be $59.99, and then occasionally we'll do deals on them like they do with Steam. That is how you end the physical media. The physical media, what's the word I'm looking for? Generation, I guess, with video games. And honestly, I wish that would happen. I want the ability to buy my games for not $60. Like the fact that I can go onto Steam and probably find an old game at a discounted price, and then like 2 or 3 times a year have a massive sale on some of the most popular games is awesome. I don't play PC games because I don't have a PC capable of playing it. However, I would love to see something like that on consoles, and we're starting to see that with Xbox Live and PlayStation and the PlayStation Network with their rewards programs and all that stuff.
They seem to be catching on and getting a lot better, both of them respectively.
Yeah. However, obviously Microsoft and PlayStation and Nintendo, they probably all have some sort of deal with retailers to ensure that physical media is still there. And, it's not going to be a simple switch as with the PC and stuff like that. But I hope eventually that will change. And honestly, the way I would stop buying physical media, like, and prefer digital download over a physical copy of a game, was an example like 2 weeks ago, during an Xbox sale, there was Tomb Raider, and it was like $20 or $30 in the store. It was the definitive edition, the one on Xbox One and PS4, and it was on sale on the Xbox One for only $10. And I was like, well, it's only $10, might as well buy it. So I picked it up. I've only put like 30 minutes into it. But, that's how I would buy digital games.
Yeah.
Flash sales. Me and you during flash sales, we go nuts.
Yeah, I mean, I'll buy games that I've never even heard of just because they're like $2. Like, I'll see
exactly.
I'll see Clanky's Awesome Adventure, and I'm like, oh, it's a platformer. Fuck, it's $2. Let's do it. And it's interesting because that's also
Clanky's
a way
Awesome
that
Adventure is actually really cool.
It's also interesting because it's it makes you wonder if a developer, obviously if they make their game $1.80, they're probably not going to come out smelling like roses, in terms of profit. But or if they give their game away, like in the case of Limbo, I downloaded it for free as a PlayStation Plus member, but now I know this developer and I know to look out for their future games because I really think that Limbo is cool. And so it makes you wonder if there's strings attached to, these sales that could really help developers in the long run. It's like you buy, Hotline Miami for a discounted price and you're like, well, shit, that game's awesome. Then you buy Hotline Miami 2 for, its regular price.
Yeah. So yeah, I think digital is the way of the future. I think it will happen. And I mean, you're still going to have those guys who are, I'd love digital or physical copies, and I'm never going to switch to digital. They're basically like the doomsday preppers of entertainment. And there'll always be those people, but I think digital will eventually take hold. It's just taking a lot longer than people anticipated.
Yeah.
Another
one of the interesting... Yeah.
Go ahead.
Another one of the interesting things is, and I think a good example is with the whole Halo Master Chief Collection debacle, when people were having all of the problems with the matchmaking, and then they got ODST if you played it before a certain period.
Mm-hmm.
It also makes me wonder if there will be certain times where, because of how we're always connected to the internet now with our consoles, if there will ever be a time where it's you've bought every Halo game in the series, so you get exclusive DLC early on Halo 5. And I think that's really cool to think about. Or it's you downloaded Rare Replay, and so Rare comes out with a new game, and you get early access to a special feature. Or, even if it's a special developer video or something, does something to incentivize loyalty to companies, and then incorporating that into the digital marketplace, I think it's a cool thing to think about for the future.
Yeah. And you also have to look at the fact that if companies can release games digitally only, game prices would go down. Probably not, because companies are greedy and they'd probably still keep them at the same price.
They could go down.
In theory, yeah, they could go down. If they're not having to spend, I don't know the actual percentage, if they don't have to spend X percentage of their profit on, game art and making the game cases and printing them on the discs and then distributing them to retailers and all that mess, if all that can be cut out of the equation, that is potentially, maybe $5-10 off of a brand new copy of a game. PC games, I think brand new go for $49.99 unless it's a super popular title. But for the most part, we could see a decrease in game prices. We could see more sales. Steam has a sale almost every single day on just whatever. Yeah, most of the time they're crap, but for the most part, that's
they're there though,
happening.
and I mean, I think there's something to be said for it's there, and like right now at the PS4 summer sale, most of it's stuff I don't want to play, but it still gets me to go to the store every week and look and see is there something I want to play here that's $6, and
exactly.
I think that's the way of the future, is having sales like that, where it's like you said, Tomb Raider, here's a 2-year-old game, but you can get it for $10. Why the fuck not? Take a chance on it. At worst, you spend $10 on an hour of fun, or not fun, but you only spent $10.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because obviously, even a decade ago, having an entire competent virtual marketplace probably seemed pretty crazy. because I mean, like
Yeah.
the Xbox Arcade, as it was called back then, like that was okay. But
Which, by the way, I still call all downloadable games on the Xbox One arcade games.
I
Still.
do too. I do too. Yeah. But to think of a time where there's gonna be like if you had said in 2005 like, oh yeah, there will be a time when like every new hot release will be on the marketplace for you at midnight, like that would have seemed absurd because at the time it was like, okay, I can get Arcadian Warriors on the Xbox Live Arcade, which was awesome, by the way, for 800 Microsoft points. Like you wouldn't picture yourself buying the new Halo game there probably, because most
Yeah.
people just didn't do that back then. So it's funny
Yeah.
how that's changed, and it'll continue to change.
Yeah.
Like all things
Uh,
in gaming.
yeah. Another way you can start to see how this digital revolution is starting to take over is, companies like Best Buy and Walmart and Target, they're not scared, obviously, of a digital revolution. They could care less about their game section of the store. That's if they got rid of their game section, that's just more real estate to have more electronics or other types of products that they offer. So those companies aren't really that worried. Yeah, they would take a hit, but not enough to sink them. One company in particular that would get sunk like the Titanic would be GameStop.
Yeah.
And you can see that to try and combat this digital revolution, they're doing so many different things now. Where GameStop is, they bought ThinkGeek, and now they have clothing, and they have action figures, and they have those little Funko Pop figures, and they're doing comic books and T-shirts and
Now retro games a little bit.
yeah, and now they're doing retro games like N64 and PS1 and SNES games and stuff like that. Oh, by the way, we also do sell video games too. That's basically what they've been saying the past couple months, and they've also been super big on pushing their digital stuff. Oh, here you can buy this game digitally at our stores, which is another thing that's blown my mind. If you can buy a game digitally, why would you go to a store to buy a digital copy of a game unless you didn't want to put your credit card on the system? I get that.
Yeah, that, or if maybe you didn't plan on buying it to begin with until you went into the store. But even then, like, I can't think of many scenarios, maybe one or two in my entire life, where I actually bought a digital game in a store. Maybe once or twice, but I probably didn't plan to. You know what I mean? Like, it was probably a decision I made while I was there. What's interesting about GameStop is that it makes you wonder, like, how important their pre-orders are then, because, like, they're like, we don't want to lose people to the convenient digital marketplace. And so it's like, it's funny how they keep trying to, and they've always done this, but like incentivize the pre-orders. It's like, oh, you get, it used to be stuff that was actually useful, like you get a fucking t-shirt or keychain. Now it's like in the Arkham Knight case, I thought it was fucking stupid. It's like you get the Red Hood DLC and the Harley Quinn DLC, which, I mean, an indictment on Rocksteady was like an hour and a half total gameplay. This is like, okay, I'll just wait for it to come out on the season pass. Like, it makes you wonder, like, how far they'll have to push the gamut to get people to actually not buy digital at midnight and actually get that physical copy. Like, I've obviously pre-ordered a few games over the summer. I pre-ordered Elder Scrolls Online and Rare Replay, and like, those didn't really have any sort of pre-order benefits. But like, looking back on it, I could have just as easily got it online. I didn't, because I probably had trade credit, is what it was.
Yeah.
So.
And I think games, after this digital revolution takes hold, whenever it starts, I think GameStop will still obviously stay afloat because not all the kids can afford, brand new games. But I think they will take a massive blow, and eventually they will go down. Once everything is digital and there's sales every single day and stuff like that, I think GameStop is going to be dead in the water. And sure, they can have clothing and they can have action figures and they can have statues and they can have all this other random crap in their stores, that I feel bad for for everyone else at GameStop who has to pick up that shit when kids come through and rip them apart and stuff like that. When all that stuff is all they have, pretty much that's all they have to offer, because games are digitally, I think they're done, because there's so many better markets for clothing and action figures and statues and comic books and stuff like that. There's so many other better markets and stores for that those are already pretty much locked down.
Most of those are online too. So
Yeah,
that's funny.
yeah, exactly. So I don't think I think GameStop is scared, honestly, and they don't have. I don't want to say they don't have a long future ahead of them, but honestly, GameStop will probably still be afloat for a good more years. But eventually, they will go down, and it'll be a pretty disgusting death. But yeah,
Tapping into the retro market also seems like a smart idea, but it also seems very risky for them
yeah,
because for every copy of Final Fantasy VII that they get and they're able to flip for a profit, you'll get 500 copies of Madden 99, and
yeah.
like I don't know, it just seems like I don't know how well they'll make out because sure there's a real niche market for classic gaming, but most of those people, because I know this because I used to collect myself, most of them will go online, eBay or Amazon or something where
You
and they
can
can
get
buy
a
from
much
verified
better.
sellers, sure, and just a wider selection, and they'll get it probably just as fast with the way shipping is now. Um, Classic games brings up something I wanted to talk to you about, and
Okay.
that is Rare Replay. I come back to it,
Okay.
because it's my most recent pickup. But so those games prior to, say, Battletoads, the Spectrum releases, those games are fucking weird, and I played them, and I just maybe it's that I'm this calloused modern gamer, but I just can't play any of those early games because I don't understand them, the Spectrum games. And I wanted to respect them, and I was like, okay, here's Saberwolf. Let's dive into this and see what it's all about. But I don't get it. And so my question is sure, it's good to appreciate classics and where gaming has come from. But at what point do you stop forcing yourself? And you're like, I'm not enjoying this at all. And that's what I think that Rare Replay does a good job of with the snapshots. It's kind of like, okay, here's a digestible chunk of the game. And I thought NES Remix was good in that too, because I would never play Clu Clu Land. But on NES Remix, I played a good bit of Clu Clu Land. Almost smashed my gamepad over Clu Clu Land.
I vividly remember hearing you scream obscenities and then about to slam the gamepad through your wall into my room.
But I would never, sit down and play Excite Bike. But on NES Remix, I get a little digestible chunk of it. But what is my question here? I guess my question is, at what point is it appreciating a classic, and at what point is it you're playing it because you feel like you have to? Do you ever feel like that with classic games?
So I've been over the summer. One thing I've wanted to do, but I haven't done, is I want to go back and play classic games because there are so many games that I didn't play because I wasn't alive, honestly. And this is something we talked about before we started. Interesting enough, and this podcast, where we're from an interesting time in video games where we were born at the end of the N64 and all that stuff, and right as the PS2 and what were the other systems?
Well, we were born
Dreamcast?
when Super Nintendo was kind of on its way out, and
Yeah,
N64 and PS1 were on their way in because that was
yeah,
95 ish, 96.
yeah. And I had a PS1 growing up,
Sure.
and but really honestly, a lot of my gaming memories come from the PS2. Yeah, I played PS1. And I remember the games I played on there. But the games that were important to me as a kid growing up were those PS2 games. Those PS2 games were the Jak and Daxter series and Gran Turismo and Crash Bandicoot. Those games were super important to me, and those were all PS2 games. But I also still played PS1 and Game Boy and all that stuff that was before that. But there are tons of games that I missed out on. I missed out on Metroid, for example. That's a big series that I've completely missed the boat on. Metal Gear Solid. I had a PS2 and a PS1, but I never played Metal Gear Solid. I don't know why. It was just a game that flew under my radar. Kirby. I played a Kirby game on the Game Boy Color, and that was the only Kirby game I ever played. Really, it's a lot of Nintendo games that I missed out on, because that was the main driving force in the 80s and 90s was the Nintendo. And I've tried to go back and play these games, and I can't. I just can't do it. I tried playing Metroid, and I don't know. I can't go back and play those games because I'm spoiled, honestly. I understand them. I understand why they're great. I appreciate them to no end, and I, as a gamer, I understand why they are important to gaming. But I can't do it. I can't go play. What was it? Jetpack.
Yeah.
On Rare Replay, I tried playing that. I couldn't do it.
Well, it's funny because I think like we have to realize that like we just have different skill sets as gamers, and like because I think that somebody that played, Saberwolf or Jetpack in 1984 or whatever that was, and they played that on the Spectrum, they would be as good as they could be at Jetpack. And they would probably be just as lost playing the Order 1886 as we would be playing Jetpack, because we're just bred so differently.
And it's funny that you say that, because I mentioned this, I think it was last week's episode, where I was talking about video game movies. Pixels brings up this idea where you had Adam Sandler, who was a guy who grew up in the 80s, where he was playing Pac-Man and Donkey Kong and Centipede, and Tetris and stuff like that, and he's talking with his love interest in the movie. He's talking to her son, and he's playing The Last of Us, and then they have this dialogue about this isn't a video game. This is you just pushing buttons and hitting zombies. Like, that's not a video game. A video game is remembering the patterns of the level you're playing and overcoming a great challenge and getting a high score and stuff like that. It was a cool, interesting take on that conversation. But I think we are bred differently. I think we are used to this huge change in video games. It's been 30 years since video games have really started to take off, and video games in the early 80s and video games now are so different. And honestly, out of all the mediums of entertainment, they have probably changed the most.
Sure. And like you and me are very comfortable with, for example, navigating a 3D world, because more or less 9 out of the 10 games that we play, you navigate a 3D world. Sure, there'll be side scrollers and things like that, but for the most part, we're used to doing that. We're used to navigating in like free space, and we're used to being challenged by many things on a screen at once. So in that sense, like, I don't think that the people who are like, old school Castlevania is just as hard as, or is much harder than, say, The Last of Us. Well, I mean, like, it requires a completely different set of skills. But like on one hand, you're also doing similar things. You're like, oh yeah, you have to memorize attack patterns. I mean, you sort of have to do that on The Last of Us, particularly if you're like you and me, and we did full grounded playthroughs. I'm like, yeah, you're memorizing where everybody is in a specific area, and you're thinking about the best way to do it. And I don't care how good you are at Jetpack, I would wager money that 9 out of the 10 of those people who are really good at Jetpack couldn't drop into, say The Last of Us and beat it ungrounded like we did. Just because it's and it's not to shit on them, and like they shouldn't shit on us. It's just like, whatever you feel comfortable with and whatever you've been bred to play, I think you should just stick to it. And yeah, appreciating the past is important. And like you said, I like looking at where gaming has come from and getting those little snapshots and those snippets and tastes. But like, just like the people who are really appreciate the 80s games, they probably don't play too many modern games. But I'm sure they appreciate how far the medium has come. And I think there's two sides of that coin. So it's interesting when you think about it.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think games are so vastly different now. It's the equivalent of saying, like, I don't like silent movies anymore because movies have changed so much. There's no way you can sit someone down to watch a silent movie after they've experienced, Michael Bay's Transformers.
Sure. And on the other hand, if there was somebody who had only watched silent films their entire life and you dropped them in front of, like, The Dark Knight Rises, they would be so overwhelmed, like, what the fuck is all this? What are these effects, they probably wouldn't
Yeah.
like it. Or maybe
Yeah.
you'd get like the one dude that's like, this is fucking awesome. But for the most
Yeah.
part, these people would probably find it so alienating that they would be like, what the hell is this? Um, and so it's interesting because it's like, d- these people that are used to going, play a side scroller or a game like, Saber Wolf where you have three buttons. It's like, what would they do if they could be transported to? I mean, they're probably still fucking alive, but like, what if in that moment they were transported to a time when they were, guiding Master Chief around in Halo 2? They'd probably be like, what the hell is this, and what do I do? And they'd probably look like, your little sister or your grandpa trying to play the game. They'd be like trying to figure out, they're like, what button is grenade? But like, that's second nature to us, and we take it for granted. We
Yeah.
just jump into a 3D space and navigate it like it's no one's business. Just like those people could jump in the jetpack or Lunar Jet Man and navigate it like it's no one's business. But it's a learning process for us, and so
Yeah.
it's interesting to look at.
Yeah. And again, I'm not saying that old video games suck. I definitely don't think that at all. I think
No,
Metroid, and Donkey Kong and all those early '80s and '90s games, I think they are works of art. I think they are masterpieces in video games. They're just very different masterpieces from what I grew up with and what I know and the games that I play now. And I do honestly want to go through and play all those. I'm trying to figure out how to play Metal Gear Solid 1 right now and play through some of those games before Phantom Pain comes out. Um, it's just jarring and hard to do.
it
And I
is.
think I think if you were to look at a stat sheet on Rare Replay and figure out how many and just see the numbers of how many people have booted up Jetpack versus how many people have booted up Banjo Kazooie and Perfect Dark, I think it would be so astronomically different. Um, and obviously people go back and play them for the novelty of it and just to see, just to try them out. But it's just they're so different. And honestly, I have no interest in going and playing uh, even half of the games on Rare Replay. But again, that's not saying that they're bad. They're just not for me.
What's cool also, I think, is that developers who make games that are intentional throwbacks, but they're mixed with sort of modern tropes that make them more accessible. Like the one example that comes to mind, and the only example right now, I know Axiom Verge is like that. I haven't played Axiom Verge, but Shovel Knight is the one that comes to mind because,
Hmm.
like, yes, it takes the old school, 8 to 16-bit tropes and like the way that those feel and the way that those play, but it mixes it with enough modern flair that it allows you know modern gamers to appreciate it too. Like me, it's like it has checkpoints, and so the super challenging platforming sections that you suck at, you'll go back to the checkpoint. And like it had that option where it's like, or if you're really fucking ballsy and you're good at platformers, you can break the checkpoints. And I like to
Yeah.
think that I'm a decent platforming gamer, but I kept the checkpoints and I died many times late in that game.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that I think I'm a pretty respectable platformer. And it didn't have the whole very punishing aspect of Mega Man where it's like, you die 3 times, your game's over. Like it was
So
like you had infinite lives. You would get punished with losing your gold, but you had infinite lives, more or less.
I'm sure you remember this. I think it was 2 years ago,
Your Mega Man
my
stage.
sophomore year. I replayed Mega Man. Or I didn't replay it. I played Mega Man on the Wii U back when I had one, and I had it. Think it was Mega Man 2. I think it
I
was
think
Mega
you
Man
played two,
2.
yeah. Two's the
Um,
most popular one.
yeah, I believe I played Mega Man 2, and I had no idea how kids could have beaten that game when they were growing up. If I was given that game when I was a kid, I would have given up on gaming. I would have thrown my PS2 out and PlayStation One and all, my Game Boy Advance and Game Boy Color. I would have slung those out the window into the trash
Unless you were
because they
Colin
were,
Moriarty.
yeah, and if anyone who is 17 people listening to us right now, if any of you guys watch Kind of Funny, and you've heard Colin Moriarty talk about Mega Man, he reveres that series, and he said he knows every single pixel of Mega Man pretty much. And when it comes down to it, when he was growing up, um, that was how he played. That's how you played video games. You remembered everything about a video game. And so when I played it, I had things like save states and stuff like that to save me when I was at a tough part, basically acting as a checkpoint. And it held my hand through the game. And I beat the game in, you can beat that game with save states. You can beat it in probably like an hour and a half, 2 hours. And it makes you think like, wow, this is what, kids played back in the 80s. This was nothing. But then you have to also remember, but I had my hand held and spoon fed the entire time. But I just think it's interesting how far games have come and how different they are now. And honestly, the generation gaps of gamers is so huge. A gamer that, is maybe a person that is maybe 5 years older than me, 5-10 years older than me, had such a different experience with video games than I did. And then in 5 and 10 years, when kids start playing video games, we're going to be the same way, saying, I remember back in my day when Last of Us only gave you, one checkpoint, and games weren't, you couldn't look through your glasses and play them.
Oh my goodness.
So I think games are rapidly changing. But again, no new or old games are better than their new or old counterparts. They're just different.
Sure.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was episode 3 of the Interesting Enough podcast. We hope you enjoyed this week's show. And again, we're still working on the various ways to access our podcast. Right now, we're still only on YouTube. The iTunes thing is a tough objective to tackle. Cookie. It's a tough cookie to crumble, just because you have to do so many things just to get it on iTunes. So right now we're sticking with YouTube, and we're still looking into other options like SoundCloud and Bandcamp and stuff like that. But right now, YouTube is still our only medium. And if there's any repeat viewers, sorry for having the podcast up a day late. We were just really busy and didn't have enough time to record it yesterday. And also, Corey really dropped the ball and forgot his equipment that he needed to record the podcast.
I did. I will accept the blame.
So you can blame Corey for ruining the show. So whatever. This is the downfall. This is the last episode.
Yeah. Well.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening, and see you later.
We'll see you next week.